All right, so next up, we're going to be moving over to the chat segment. We've done this on YouTube a lot now, guys, and you guys have seen it around here and there. We're going to be talking about video game, movie, and TV adaptations. So, just to warm us up, let's talk about some of our favorites, some of the worst. Is there something that comes to mind that is like your favorite adaptation from a video game?
From a video game or to a video game? Or
From a
either.
video game?
From a
Either,
video game.
actually. Let's try it around with either, because that's a really good idea.
So, damn it, I already talked about Assassin's Creed. I was surprised at how well polished that movie was. I
I haven't
didn't
given it a shot.
I actually like I'm not going to ever go back and watch it and the story was kind of I see what they're getting at.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it for what it was. It's a stupid action flick, but
Hmm.
sometimes you just want to watch a stupid action flick. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. It got a lot of shit for the movie actually being decent in a weird way. I don't know if that's the best one because that I haven't seen the Mario movie and I want to watch
Oh,
Mario,
dude. That's the best one. Yeah.
but there haven't been good ones really until recently. So,
The way you describe that Assassin's Creed reminds me of the Prince of Persia adaptation, which
okay.
also was just like, yeah, it's not like gonna win an Oscar, but it's cool. You got Gyllenhaal that's just pressing a dagger and time around, just fun. Uh, that was worth watching, but I think Mario's a really good one because after you said that, it made me think probably the best adaptation is Mario and the worst adaptation is Mario. The
Depending
93.
on which Mario you're talking about.
Yeah. What do you think makes for a good video game adaptation then? Because I see the new Mario that's so good stayed really close to the source material. It like invented some new stuff, but definitely stayed to there. But another really good one for me is Detective Pikachu, which did not use the source material hardly at all. So what do you think makes a good adaptation?
I think I'm going to actually use Sonic the Hedgehog as my example
Oh,
because I
cool.
have seen both the Sonic movies and I did like both the Sonic movies quite a lot. And they're very different from many of the Sonic TV shows, and the source material is
Hmm.
somewhat there, but for the most part, it's a totally original story with some totally original side characters. So I think what it is being able to pay homage to the original source material of whatever it is you're dealing with while making something completely new that you can say stands alone on its own. It's I'm gonna do it again. It's the Star Trek, it's the J.J. Abrams Star Trek thing. Like
Yeah.
this is a new timeline, so you can accept it as its own thing, and then suddenly people can like myself can be like, okay, I can watch Star Trek, the 2009 movie, because
Yeah.
it's not this Star Trek. It's not erasing anything. It's adding to it in a different way. So I think if you're paying homage to it while making something completely new and not being, I don't know, not being like, don't ridicule your audience over it.
Right. Which
There's,
we were talking about Witcher earlier. That seems to be a big problem there with like the showrunners are so they're separating themselves from the source material, and they actually I just read a thing where one of the producers is annoyed by Henry Cavill because he was too big of a fan, and it was like that makes me not want to watch anything you guys do now. And so yeah, you got to be serious with it.
could you imagine if on the set of The Mandalorian, John Favreau was just like, yeah, I don't care what you guys do. I never really liked Boba Fett, so I don't really get this Mandalorian guy anyway.
No, my
Like,
God,
could you imagine that? And he's like one of the
awful.
two major guys there. Like,
Yeah,
why? No, that's what I love about Star Wars stuff right now is that John Favreau. I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head.
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni. Thank you, Dave Filoni specifically, but also
Yeah,
John Favreau's vision of Star Wars as a whole, and Dave Filoni, what he's able to do with telling Star Wars stories specifically, carries on the franchise for me. And honestly, I almost see those as adaptations just because it's so new and so different, even though it's the same
yeah.
medium, if that makes
And they
sense.
do stand on their own, and but they do reference back to the old stuff and stay pretty truthful to them. Looking at some of the other adaptations I'm seeing here, Rampage is with The Rock and stuff like that. Rampage, the video game, was so loose that really you couldn't botch it unless you like straight up just didn't make the characters that were in the game, and they did that. They did kind of like lean it to where like but the monkey's actually on our side, which is obviously not how that works.
Right.
But and it was mostly just watching The Rock be the same exact character he's always in every movie. But it was still good for like a summer flick that was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna watch The Rock like hang out with some CGI characters. And I think if you don't take the adaptation so seriously, like for example, if you go with Mario, like Mario has a story. Like, you know what Mario's whole jam is. Rampage doesn't have a story, so you can just kind of screw around with that one. I think that works well too. And there's a few that do that, but I think Mario's really good about, or I'm sorry, Rampage is really good about that.
I want to bring up one of my most hated examples, and that is Doom. Because you brought up The Rock. I had to talk about Doom. The Doom movie was so bad in so many ways, and I think it was because they were trying to appeal specifically to the audience of people that recognize the name Doom from either their dads playing it back in the day or the newer games that I don't think there were any new games back then when
And
the
not at
movie
the time,
came out.
yeah.
Doom 3, I think, might have come out around that time. But yeah, Doom was not very popular of a name at that point. And man, they tried paying. They had the whole first-person shooter scene in the movie.
That
Like,
scene was awesome. I will say, like that was cool. I think.
as a person that played Doom back in the day, you're like, okay, I get that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But if you're just watching the movie, you have no idea. You're just watching it because
fair.
Dwayne Johnson's in it. It's like, what the heck is going on with this? Why? I'm getting
Yeah,
like, I don't
it
know.
doesn't serve
it
either
seems-
audience in that sense. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's a bad movie on its own, so it doesn't serve just the normal moviegoer. It also just is not a very good adaptation because we didn't get like the Doom guy or anything that really looks too recognizable to the video game. Not a whole lot of references that are useful. So that one just kind of fell flat and was only using the name, like you're saying. That's a shame because man, that would be dope if they actually stayed like outside of Mars. They actually just stayed in that little like room or whatever. Like, we promise Mars is out there.
Has The Rock ever been in a good movie?
Ooh, God. Oh boy, now you're talking. Now you're talking some smack. Moana. He's in Moana.
Okay. Does that okay? Has he ever been in a good live action movie? I guess
can't say he has.
if I have to clarify it, then I've already lost. But
Have you seen Jumanji?
I actually want to. I have not seen either of the two Jumanji reboot movies.
Yeah, Johnson didn't give him a shot because he was kind of like, it's not Robin Williams, and I don't blame him for that. But you got to give him a shot and just take them for what they are. They're a family flick or whatever, like Pirates of the Caribbean level, and you can't go wrong. I mean, it's all of them with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart saves the day. Jack Black does some of his best acting in a weird way. Yeah, it's totally worth a watch. It's good stuff.
People said the same thing about Aladdin, to not give that one a shot because it wasn't Robin Williams, and I liked Will Smith as the genie in Aladdin.
Yeah, they did. The songs were a little wonky on that, but okay. Yeah.
I liked it.
Mortal Kombat. So let's talk about some that have like multiple
Okay.
movies. Mortal Kombat. They have two of the old ones and then one new one that came out recently. I can't stand the older ones, but the new one, I was like, yeah, I get it. You like really don't care about the story. Apparently, you're just gonna throw these characters together. It almost feels like a completely different story. I know that the Mortal Kombat story is wackadoo, and Squeaks has to catch me up on it every so often. Have you seen all the movies? What do you think about that one?
I didn't know that a new one had already come out. I know
Yeah.
of the first two, the original Mortal Kombat and then Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And honestly, I hate the knee-jerk reaction that I had when you said you hate the old movies. I wanted to argue, and then I think back and it's like, the music is iconic.
Yes.
Everything else about that movie was fucking awful.
Right.
The second one was trash, was just a trash movie altogether. Annihilation just was garbage. The first one, I thought some of the scenes were kind of cool, but it does every trope of an adaptation wrong. It does all of them. It does the like trying to play to the core audience of people who know what Mortal Kombat is with the things like "get over here" and
Yeah.
"finish him, your soul is mine," that kind of stuff. Like that's all just like really cheesy stuff that's specifically to pander to us who
Yeah.
have played the source material. Which is okay to have that kind of stuff, but it was very much in excess in those movies. And I don't think it did a good job of drawing in new people that didn't know what Mortal Kombat was, because it was just way too damn cheesy of a movie to begin with.
I will say the 2021 is cheesy because, of course, it has to be. There's like a guy with metal arms, and
It's
so
2 years old and I didn't know it was out.
yeah, it came out during the pandemic. And it was one of those. It was like, oh, it's supposed to be in theaters, but screw it, it's on HBO now. So yeah.
HBO. I've never had Max.
Oh my
that
god,
might be it.
I keep telling you, you got to watch Veep. Everybody's got to watch Veep. So
Oh, I've seen Veep in its entirety.
Okay, I was about to share some passwords here. Don't do that, guys. That's bad. But yeah, it does a really good job of kind of being like its own thing as well, standing on its own. And it does do the get over here at one point, which it uses like the actual game audio for it. And I was like, okay, well we needed that. That was just for us. So that was perfect.
That's also cheesy to me if it uses it straight from the game. Like I get off on that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
it's also like if I I could see from an outside perspective how that'd be totally off-putting. Like that doesn't fit. It's just out of nowhere. It's out of left field. I don't know.
I went, okay, editor Frank, make sure you added the get over here because you have to at this point. We've said it enough times. Tomb Raider. I think that the Tomb Raider series had a good start, but it didn't like want to actually like tell a good story. I don't know. To me, the story was a little bit everywhere. It was trying to set up like, oh, we're gonna use Tomb Raider to make our 007, version of it. And then the remake came out, which there's a new remake even beyond this. This one's not the new version of it that reduced the budget dramatically and went back to kind of rebooted to where the games had rebooted. And I think that had a better shot. But of course, people who own Tomb Raider didn't like that either. They're rebooting it again. Do you think we could get an adaptation that'll actually carry through to an entire franchise, like we see with 007, like we see with Mission Impossible?
I That's hard to answer for sure because I think it goes to what you individually like. Like I
Yeah.
want to say for people like yourself who's a big fan of Halo, that Paramount's big Halo franchise should have worked out better than it did and could have. I didn't watch it. I don't care for the games. My thought is I was like Mass Effect, but what is Mass Effect if not just a different Star Trek like
Yeah.
that already exists in so many forms that
Hmm.
it's just so much about your own opinion of what you want and then like how you would do it or how you think it should be done and then taking everybody else's opinion into account. There's just nobody that's going to agree to the point where it'll be a success. God of War could do it if they did a good God of War movie.
Yeah.
God of War could
Which
probably do
they're
it.
doing the series for that. Amazon's doing the series for God of
That's
War.
right. That's right.
Yeah. And it's going to be based off the 2008 version. And we're hoping that Danielle Bussetti will be cast for that. She's already been on the podcast, and she's going to be back if she gets cast for that. So that'd be really good. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Really good point there. Does it add something that's not already being said? A really great example of something that was like, this is questionable, is The Last of Us. We all just thought like it's the new Walking Dead, so they weren't really paving new dirt or anything like that. But it still ended up working out really well. I can't think of a video game that does something completely new. Like as much as I want to see the World of Warcraft movies keep going, you're just talking Game of Thrones with a different budget, so it's kind of it's kind of hard. Anything off the top of your head? I know it's a bit of a stretch to ask that. That's a big question. Is there anything you could think of that would be like a totally new story that we don't really have in movies or cinema or anything like that?
I don't know. It'd have to be something that has a big enough appeal with its name, but
That's
no.
true. Yeah, the name too. Because if you look at like what was that one, Monster Hunter? Boy, that thing bombed so bad, and it was
Right.
just like you have to really be a Monster Hunter fan to give that thing a shot because it looks so stupid from the outside. And you see they're holding the weapons like that, it just looks ridiculous.
See, the other thing is World of Warcraft, you were saying, is a very recognizable name, but you're only appealing to people that want to watch a World of Warcraft movie. Even if you sell it as it's Game of Thrones but set in Azeroth, it's like if it's got the name World of Warcraft in it, I'm not going to watch it because I don't like World of Warcraft, even though I loved Game
Yeah.
of Thrones. So it's really hard. Treading carefully with a license is a good thing, but it'll also lead to you doing nothing with it at the same time. So it's such a hard line to walk.
So with our preferred biases and stuff like that, like you were saying with Warcraft, which the movie it's not a great movie, but for the Warcraft fans, it gives you everything you could possibly want. Like we walked out of there like, I'm satisfied with this, which is more than what I expected. And we had thought like it did so well overseas that we're like, they're gonna make a sequel to this, and then they can get to the good story. This is the story you needed to tell. That's the good story over there with the Lich King. So we're hoping for that. We'll see if they ever get to it. Probably not. It's unfortunate. But with the PlayStation and the Xbox console war, could you imagine somebody like, I'm not gonna go watch God of War. I'm an Xbox guy. I'm a Halo guy. Do you think that could happen? Is anybody not watching the Halo series just because they're big PlayStation loyalists?
I I don't know.
I guess
I think
doing
people that were PlayStation loyalists at one point have grown up for the most part and
Yeah.
have bigger and better things going on than to trash Xbox Bros. I will say though, I'm wearing the Pushing Button shirt right now, so it's very appropriate to bring up Pushing Buttons again. I remember when Kyle had announced on the podcast that he was getting an Xbox One back in the day. I think it was an Xbox One. I was like, why are you doing that? And then he was talking about how he and Robert could be Xbox bros. And I was just like, I don't get it. Why? It was my tribalism coming out because I've been a PlayStation guy since the PlayStation 4. Since the PS4. I was like, why would anyone want an Xbox in the PS4 generation? Like, it's the PS4 generation. And yeah.
It's funny how natural that comes to us. Like, I did the poll on our Twitter account, X account, guys. You can follow us on X. I did the poll over there to say which one should I get, Xbox or PlayStation 5, and PlayStation 5 won. And I was almost like, I was leaning towards PS5 anyways, and that was kind of like, okay, I don't feel guilty now because the vote said I had to, so I don't feel guilty about ditching Xbox for the first time in over a decade. And that was that was such a weird feeling. Like, why am I loyal to a billion-dollar company? I don't know.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but it also does at the same time. Like, it makes perfect sense because people are nerds, and that's what we're here for.
Let's wrap things up with our favorite and least favorite adaptations. I've already talked about the Mario movie, but I think Detective Pikachu just completely kills it. And how we have to get so many more of these are so good. It created a world where Pokemon exists, which I think is when you're a kid and you're watching and playing with Pokemon cards. That's really what you're imagining. You're not necessarily imagining yourself as Ash Ketchum. I think you're imagining yourself in a world where Pikachu could be your friend. And that's what Detective Pikachu did. It's an excellent adaptation of a movie, of a video game. Can you think of your favorite one?
Can I answer both with one?
Yeah,
I've got reasons for it. So back when I was a kid in the 90s, there was a Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. There's been several of them, but this is one that has been dubbed Saturday AM. It was the very cheesy, every character was like a little more round, like everything was a little like off. It was my favorite cartoon. I didn't watch very many cartoons as a kid. It was one of my favorite cartoons, and they always had a message. Like, there was a Sonic Says at the end where he always says, like, don't talk to strangers. There was always something that he had to teach the kids. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's where, for me, that's where he got his addiction to chili dogs from and stuff. I just have such fond memories of watching that show. I went back as an adult and watched it, and it is probably the worst TV show that has ever been made. No. It is so bad. It doesn't appeal to me, and it's not supposed to appeal to me as an adult. And this was like 10 years ago. But like, even as a kid, was I dumb enough to actually like this? And I certainly was, because it was my favorite cartoon, and it's so bad. So it's probably the best and the worst adaptation ever.
Some things just don't hold up, man. As much as I love Power Rangers, when you watch them like wave their arms around as they talk, you're like, that's a lot. That's hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you see the zippers on their outfits.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my god. Mine was going to be Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. It was a Final Fantasy movie they made. It was all in CGI. Now, I watched this movie because I never played Final Fantasy, but I was like, oh, this is a good way to get into it. And
this is your worst one, right?
What's that?
This is your worst one, right?
This is my worst one. Yes. Sorry.
Okay, perfect.
And at the time, I know this ages me immediately, but this was one of the first movies like fully CGI, and so I was like, "Oh, this is a new technology. Let's check this out." There was a time when Toy Story was known for that, and not just being like Pixar. It was because it was like the first CGI movie, and so I went to go see this thing, and it seemed stunning at the time, and it's not anymore. But it's such a weird and super sci-fi story, and super out there, that I feel like it's so alienating for something that could have been a gigantic franchise. I think if Final Fantasy took one of their fantasy-based storylines at this time, it was like Lord of the Rings era and stuff, they could have like done this entire Japanese medieval aged story, and I think it would have done really well. So I think Spirits Within ruined what could have been, which is an entire like multi-movie spanning fantasy story based in Final Fantasy. I think that would have been great. Instead, we got this garbage. Oh, man. Let us know, guys, your favorite and your least favorite over on X, Threads, Twitter, or whatever. TikTok. I keep getting the names all messed up. Let us know, guys. We appreciate your input on those.